those numbers change a little bit because people start to go, oh, wait a minute. Speaking of the East, do we all agree Detroit's coming out of the East? Because this still feels like a real conversation that people are not in agreement that it's like, again, look, right there, the numbers even say it. Where are we, guys? Chandler, I'm Detroit.
The odds to win the East, them not being the favorite, is just straight disrespect. Like,
it's hella disrespectful.
What else do they have to do now? As like if I was a gambling,
I was about to say, what's your pick though, Chandler?
I know. What are you about to say? As the brain of the group, because that would have been weird.
The Cavs are sneaky, and they had just about the worst start that I could possibly imagine, right? And they are still right there in the thick of things. They're still not playing their best basketball. You go and add a James Harden, and now all this doubt about the issues with Garland and Mitchell and who's going to have the ball and who's their guy, who's the franchise piece, who's going forward. Obviously, we always known that was Donovan Mitchell, but there's no more question of if that's going to work or not. And it's just a guy that can help you win more right now. And I love Darius Garland, and I love him in LA. But I think James Harden makes them better. James Harden makes Jared Allen better. James Harden makes Evan Mobley even better. And I think they have all the pieces. They have the talent. They're also super deep. They have such good shooting. They got Dennis Schroeder. Like they won the trade deadline to me, which automatically makes them, I think, kind of jump. But I would pick the Pistons still. Like, I think the Pistons, no matter what, when offense is going for you, shots are falling, the Pistons can still beat you. When that happens to these other teams, Cleveland, New York, they're not as tough. They're not as defensive-minded. When their offense goes south, their game goes south. Pistons, it doesn't matter. They're the most consistent, toughest team. So if I had to pick one,
you do.
It's the Pistons.
You only get one.
It's the Pistons, but I'm taking the Cavs over the Knicks. I'm taking the Cavs over Philly. I'm taking the Cavs over Boston. I'm taking the Cavs over all of them.
What is happening? By the way, the irony here is that all I want to do is I want to play that James Harden meme where he just rolls his eyes and walk off. That's the irony, because that's how I feel about all that.
And when Chandler's done, I disagree. I still think Boston is the most dangerous team in the East. I still think outside of Detroit, Boston is the most dangerous team in the East. You go add Vooch at the All-Star deadline, and we're also hearing rumblings about Jason Tatum being cleared for 5-on-5, and he's spending time with the G League team. Now, you know, when a guy gets assigned to the G League, we're weeks out. That's a weeks out conversation. Now, I don't know how much time that they take to allow him to get back on his feet and be comfortable with putting him in the lineup. But any team that adds a Vucevic and a Jason Tatum to their lineup with about 25 or so games to go left in the season, and they're already playing great basketball with what they have on the floor already, I think that makes them the most dangerous team. And you're talking about a team that has a chip on their shoulder that wants to prove something. You know, we're making a big deal out of Detroit and the Detroit culture and what they've been able to do. Well, Boston has created a culture as well. And them being left out of a lot of these conversations, I know that Jaylen Brown and the rest of those guys are pissed off. Down to their head coach. The way that they like to fight and be a part of these conversations, I know they're looking at everybody like, if y'all are going to sleep on us, we're just gonna sneak up on you, and we're gonna do what we do best. And I think, and I think that's what Boston's been able to do. So I'm putting him in that conversation.
And I'll say this too: Jaylen Brown's been unbelievable. He's another guy that I should be.
That's another guy we can put in that conversation as MVP. Yeah.
Let them go on a little heater here and win 23 out of 25 and take the #1 seed. Now you're starting to hear Jaylen Brown in those talks as well, because no Tatum, no Porzingis, no Holiday. I'll be honest, I thought this team was going to be a 5 to 8 seed in the Eastern Conference.
That's how they started. But that's how they started.
They've overexceeded everyone's expectations. Obviously, Derek White's been solid. Pritchard's been solid. Adding a Vucevic. Sam Hauser's been great, but Jaylen Brown should also be in those MVP talks because he has been the best player on that team by far, and he showed there's no doubt I'm a #1 option, even when Jason Tatum comes back.
It's going to be interesting, those first few games.
They got Vooch and Pritchard coming off the bench right now, right? Imagine if Jason Tatum comes back and he's coming off the bench as well. We're looking at a Boston team with a first group and a second group that can rival anybody else's starting lineups. That makes them dangerous to me. I'm sorry. Like, I know what Cleveland was able to do with adding James Harden and giving them another playmaker, but you talk about the balance of a team, I love what Boston was able to do at the break.
And think about
it. Still shocked by that, Cleveland.
Would you rather Vucevic or Porzingis?
Me personally, I'd rather Vooch.
Yeah,
Literally.
me too.
So they got better. So they literally ended up getting better.
Yeah, you're the one out here talking Cleveland. Nobody else is talking crazy like that.
Cleveland
You and
just,
whoever made up these numbers.
They're just like the ex-girlfriend.
No.
I can't let go.
I mean, it sounds like you're all in Cleveland. There's nothing's wrong with that.
No, I think there's a lot wrong with it, actually. I think there's a lot.
They're a good ball club.
You're not feeling it, Leeds? You don't believe in it?
I got burned last year in the playoffs, and all you did was add James Harden, whose playoff history is also not stellar. So I don't know why all of a sudden they jump up to the top, but hey, that's why I do this and I don't do that. There's a reason for that. By the way, we poo-poo on the East a lot. There are some numbers up here I'm about to get into that are kind of fascinating to me because I'm starting to think maybe we're underestimating the East just a wee bit because East teams versus West teams, especially these guys at the top, have kind of crushed Detroit, Boston, New York, Cleveland, Toronto Tide, Philly, Orlando, Miami. They all have winning records against West teams, Lou. Did we maybe do them a bit of a disservice?
Yeah, I think they were just off to a slow start. I think when, just on paper and when you look at the eye test, the West they just feel like they had better teams, right? And then the East, it was kind of a balance of competitive nature over there in the East, and everybody was just beating everybody. You really didn't know who's who. As we got later into that first half of the season, it kind of started to sort itself out. You know what I mean? Detroit kind of took that number one spot. They created some separation, and then we start building out from there. And I think that's what kind of made us a little iffy about the East, is we really didn't know who was who because all of those teams went through something. Boston went through something early. New York went through their struggles early. Cleveland were going through their struggles. We really didn't know who's who. Like, think about how we started this season. We started this season talking about the Chicago Bulls and the Atlanta Hawks in the East. That's who we were talking about. We were talking about those two teams. Feels like a long time ago, Lou. It feels like ages ago, right? We were talking about those two teams leading the East, and then once everything kind of settled in and we can evaluate and analyze what's really going on in the East, then you start giving teams their proper respects. Now I think it's more of a balance and it's more of a respect factor from the East to the West and them competing against each other, opposed to when we first started this conversation in the season. So I think that was the main thing.
The Eastern Conference it's been a roller coaster, right? Like Lou said, the Chicago Bulls and Josh Giddey being an all-star and the Atlanta Hawks, like they were like the teams. I thought the Orlando Magic were going to be very good. They've struggled. Philly's been up and down. Toronto's been surprisingly well and kind of stuck in that 3 to 5 range all season long. The Knicks, we're talking about Karl-Anthony Towns not fitting, not knowing his role, them going on huge losing streaks, and then turning around and winning 8 straight. So the only real consistent team has been the Pistons, but they are much more competitive. They are better than we gave them credit for in the beginning of this season. I just think there's been so much change and turnover in that Eastern Conference. And still, when we're comparing the conferences, if you look across the board, Pistons against the Thunder in a season, I'm going West. Spurs against the Celtics. It's a tough one, but I'm probably going San Antonio.
Wow.
Nuggets against the Knicks. I'm taking the Nuggets. Cavs against the Rockets. I'm probably taking the Rockets. The Lakers against the Sixers. The Raptors. Probably taking the Raptors. And Philly against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm taking the Minnesota Timberwolves. So the Western Conference is still much better.
There were some surprises in there, Chandler. I felt like the whole segment.
I don't know if I totally agree with Chandler on all of those picks.
Boston, San Antonio's tough one. Like no, don't
get me wrong. I love that you said San Antonio, but I don't know that a lot of people would agree with you, which is
you just breezed past that one. That was kind of crazy.
Yeah,
I said that one. That one. Let's call that one a pick 'em. So what?
I also hate that I'm wearing green right now.
You also said Philly and who else?
Philly would play Minnesota.
You just went through that one.
Come on, what are we doing?
Oh,
Lakers, Toronto.
We can't say Joel Embiid, when available, is one of the best players in the world and then just breeze past him in the playoff series. Come on, man.
No,
did do that.
Just saying.
Did breeze.
And the play-in in the West is.
Well, maybe you were just talking fast, but you just made it sound like these were just shoe-ins. Maybe
like they were facts. So you just said facts.
I don't know.
You want to talk about the play-in? You Phoenix or Orlando?
I love it. Warriors, if Orlando could be healthy, that's the biggest thing.
Do you know what the
Franz
Clippers
Wagner news is bad?
Do you know what the Clippers would do to the Charlotte Hornets in a series? Like, what are we doing?
You made that sound weird.
This is still much better.
Okay, fine. Look, I'm not sitting here arguing. I'm just saying you were very sure of yourself, and good for you.
I'm letting him stand on there by himself.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll mark it.
Whatever.
Okay, hold on. I have another. I'm not usually a stat person or a numbers person, but there's a few in today's show that are awesome, and this one I love. So since 1980, teams who have reached 40 wins before they've reached 20 losses have gone on to win the title 90% of the time. 90. The Pistons and Thunder. They've already gotten there.
That's not
there
a
are
great
two teams
stat.
left that could actually. Well, I love this stat. I just think it's fascinating.
Boston's got to come out swinging, go 5-0.
So Celtics are gonna. They're tough. Spurs and Celtics still have a shot. Spurs are 38-16, so they got a little bit of wiggle room. Celtics are sitting there at 35-19.
Hold on.
I don't think they're going to get it done.
The Nuggets could win their first 5, and the Rockets could win their first 7, right? Or you can't have 20.
Just stop. Okay, that's great. No, you can't get to 20 losses. Like you.
Oh yeah, so they're out. They're really
there are literally only 2 teams left: Spurs, Celtics. Spurs, I think. Well, I don't want to jinx it, so I'm not going to say.
Nobody
but how
really
fascinating
cares
is
about.
that?
Nobody really cares about your record unless you're trying to break the record. Other than that, nobody really cares.
It's not about caring. It's just the simple fact that 90% of the time when you do this,
sure,
you're
but
a winner.
like that's not like a great rule. Any team that wins 40 games before they lose is 20. That's a pretty good basketball team. So it's not like that's some kind of astonishing stat. Like, of course.
40. I think it's a pretty crazy stat, especially when you consider some of the teams have made it to the finals in years past, like that did not win. You're like, yeah, of course you didn't, because 42 of the last 46 did this.
Yeah, sure. But what I'm saying is we're not going to start counting who's getting the 40 first. Like nobody pays attention to that.
When you're looking at the NFL playoffs and they kind of whittle it down to the last 2. Have you ever seen that? And it's like, all right, this team before this date was this. This team's offensive rating has to be this. And then you cut it down to like the Broncos win the Super Bowl. And that happened this year too, and it didn't really pan out.
Well, they lost their quarterback. Is pretty tough to.
Just like good basketball teams are supposed to win the championship. Like that's how it goes. So the teams that win 40 before they lose 20, statistically, they're supposed to be the teams that's going to compete for a championship. I don't know.
I need to check the Spurs schedule real quick.
42 out of 46 is nothing to snooze.
Yeah, that just tells me it's no Cinderella stories.
Really
the teams that's supposed to be there are there.
Let's see. The Spurs play the Suns tonight. Then they play the Kings. Ooh, they play the Pistons on Monday. That's a tough one. They got it tough. They can do it, but it's tough. All right, we're going to take a quick break. A ton more questions for the latter half of the season. I'm still working on that title when we come back.